Recently, over at the Cinema Loco blog, I put up a feature which posed the question: is Zack Snyder's Man of Steel the first good Superman film? See, unlike many others, I have issues with each and every one of Superman's current cinematic incarnations, and I was hoping that this would be the first film that I could sit back and say, that is actually a good Superman film. However, it's not. Not even by a long shot. Personally, I've never been that overwhelmed by the character of Superman. Granted, it is an interesting character and he does indeed have an interesting story, one in which I felt Zack Snyder was actually going to add more depth to. Obviously, there was going to be lots of action because that's his thing, but from the trailers, the footage that we've all seen, it actually looked like there was going to be much more of an emotional pull, and this was going to be a truly much more dynamic retelling of Superman's story. That's what I thought going in, and that's the hopes and anticipations I had for Man of Steel. However, I left the theatre bitterly disappointed. Man of Steel wastes no time in throwing you straight into the story. In fact, it just throws so much at you at once, it is kind of baffling. The scene that opens the film is Superman's birth on Krypton, the first natural birth on Krypton for years. Why is that? We don't know, but we'll find out later in the film, along with several other things which are kind of set up and not explained until much later in the film, in the film's first opening scene. So Superman's born on Krypton. Krypton is dying because those who are in charge of Krypton have been harvesting its core. Whatever that means and whatever that does, we don't know. Again, there is also a military coup going on, led by General Zod, who wants to get hold of the Codex, put it inside a world engine and a phantom drive and make a new Krypton, and he's caught and he's been seen doing bad things and he's sent to the Phantom Zone and the planet's destroyed, and Superman, as a baby, as we know, is sent off from Krypton to planet Earth. The opening is incredibly fumbled. It throws so much at you that you don't understand, so many terms, so many ideas. It's just so hurried and so rushed, and there's just so much forced exposition without answers that it is actually really quite annoying. And it's a little bit like, just slow down, tell me what this is, let's have a little bit more backstory, take our time, we don't have to get Superman on Earth just yet. I'm cool to hang on Krypton a little while longer while you explain what's going on, what you're doing, and why you're doing it, instead of just going zing, 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 here's this, here's that, here's this again. Yeah. It's really fuddled, really messy, really incredibly quickly delivered, and it just throws everything at you, and you're kind of just left reeling like, well, why? What's this? What's happening? Oh, so the baby's going to Earth, which it does, and we all know that. So that's the one kind of constant we can hold on to. Back down on Earth, the film jumps forward 33 years later, where Clark Kent / Kal-El is now a fully grown man with a beard, living the life of a nomad, wandering around from place to place, doing manual job after manual job, helping out people in the process. Also, he's figuring out who he is, what he is, why he is, and where he came from, or at least he's trying to, and in the midst of all this, he's doing heroic deeds to help people. Kind of like Superman in training, as it were, but without the suit and with a beard. Whilst this is going on, the film backpedals through the medium of flashbacks to show us glimpses of Clark's childhood, how he was raised by Jonathan and Martha Kent, played here by Diane Lane and Kevin Costner, brilliantly, and there's not enough of those two. It shows how he managed to learn about his powers, develop his powers, and it's a little bit angsty and a little bit emotional, but it's in these moments in which the film actually is at its best for me. This is what I was hoping for from the trailers, this is what I was hoping we'd get more of, but it's only shown through really sparse, short scenes which are intermitted with present-day goings-on, and that narrative structure is really strange. It makes the film feel sluggish and slow, and it slows it down, and it kind of just really puts a spanner in the works. I think for a story like this, it would have been better to go for a more linear approach, and you could have expanded upon those scenes, which for me really are the heart of this film. There's a scene towards the end, which you've maybe seen in the trailer, of a young boy putting on like a red t-shirt as a cape, and that scene in itself is particularly touching, and it is actually quite emotional, and these moments are the best moments in the film for me, but there's just not enough of them. It's almost like they're just peppered in for the sake of it, and I just wish had they expanded upon these and kind of detracted from some of the more convoluted areas of the film, Man of Steel would have been much better, but it's not, because it doesn't put the emphasis on the good bits. It kind of puts more emphasis on the confusing, the lazy plot mechanics, and all the other bad things that go on in the film. So while Clark's doing his nomad beard, helping people out thing, and we're having the back pedals to the flashbacks, and we're seeing how he grew up, on top of that, stacked above is the introduction of Lois Lane, who is brought out into the field to investigate a story of a potential anomaly from space, a spacecraft, a mysterious finding. And here she stumbles across Clark Kent, who also just happens to be there, and it also just happens to be the ship that he's been looking for all the answers. Yeah, I know. And the two meet and they have an encounter, and then they become kind of friends and entangled, and there's a slight hint of romance, and there's a sense of trust, and he, toys with the idea of coming out to the world as Superman, and she wants him to, but then she doesn't, and then it's back and forth, and eventually he feels he has to because, of course, General Zod and his evil people arrive on Earth and demand that he show himself, present himself, and give up the Codex, which they were looking for, which they're going to stick in the Phantom Drive and the World Engine, and yeah, that's what happens. As you can probably tell, the whole over-exposition, forced storytelling and stacked plot dynamics, which so many of them are lazy, is tiresome, and it's because it is. It feels like it's 2.5 hours long, the film, and it feels longer. It's a real slog to get through because of the way it's handled. It could have been streamlined, it could have been skimmed down and tightened up so much more. And there is a good film in there somewhere. It's just lost in the bloated mess in which Man of Steel is delivered. The casting is good for the most part. This is kind of what saves it. Like I said, there's not enough Pa Kent, courtesy of Kevin Costner. He, for me, steals the show. Although Michael Shannon is just as good as you would imagine as Zod. Again, he doesn't really kind of get enough time to sort of really beef up his character's past and his history and his motives. It kind of feels like a really good casting choice and a really good performance, but wasted screen time. A little bit like Benedict Cumberbatch was in Star Trek Into Darkness. It just kind of feels like they've got so many good qualities to this film, but they just have them rearranged in such a bad manner that the film itself as a final product just falters badly because of it. And that's a shame, because I really wanted to like Man of Steel. I really thought that this could have been the first Superman film that I generally really liked, but it's not. And it makes me wonder if Superman is actually a property that can actually make a good transition to the screen, or if there is in fact just too much to deliver with it. Anyway, I didn't particularly like the film. I'm going to score it a 4.5, but you might disagree completely. If you do, let me know, because, debate is always great, which is a slogan that I've just made up on the spot, so feel free to use that if you want. But let me know what you thought of Man of Steel. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Were you yourself bitterly disappointed? And if so, why? More stuff coming out in the next coming weeks, so stay tuned. But in the meantime, let me know what you thought of Man of Steel. It'd be nice to know what you guys made of the film.